Welcome to the Undisputed podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Taft. This podcast is the full show from today's episode of Undisputed from start to finish. They've got a busy slate, so skip Shannon. Let's get to it.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Undisputed. Hope you had a nice weekend. I'm Jenny Taft with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe. How are we doing today, guys?
Jenny, we are doing fine. I am doing much better than Skip, but hey, nevertheless, I'm sure hopefully everyone had a great Easter or Passover, whatever you celebrate. Hopefully it was great. I'm doing well.
All I want to say is I never thought I'd see the night that I would be out of my mind excited to watch professional basketball players play horse live in their driveways. But it has come to this, and thank God for small favors.
Yes, Skip, you're exactly right. This is what it's come to, and this is what we've been forced to watch. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, shooting basketball in their backyard.
Hey, you know what? We will take it at this point, and we did have a little bit of basketball last night, and that is how we are going to start the show today by discussing the NBA horse competition. So here is who advanced. Zach LaVine, Mike Conley, Chauncey Billups, and Allie Quigley all move on to the semifinals. But really the biggest upset that we may have seen was Billups, who came back from 3 letters down to take down Trae Young with 5 straight letters. So Shannon, I start with you. Your biggest takeaway from this horse competition?
Skip, if you remember when we were discussing this, I think last week, maybe a week before, I said Trae Young would be one of the guys that would probably do well in a situation like this. And so it was, as Jenny mentioned, it was a huge upset. But Skip, I'm watching some of these people shoot, and they were shooting on goals like I grew up in my backyard. I mean, some of them was bent, some of them was leaning. And I'm like, is that a regulation goal? Mike Conley had the perfect sit-up. So, Skip, moving forward, I'm going to pick Mike Conley because he doesn't have to worry about the elements. He doesn't have to worry about the wind. He doesn't have to worry about it being cold, too hot. He has a regulation, like an NBA-size setup going on here. And I'm also going to pick him, Skip, because he seems to be the guy that can shoot the best with his non-dominant hand. He pulled out some great trick shots, and a lot of times, and Skip, this is what it comes down to in horse, is being able to do a lot of these shots if you're right-handed, being able to lay the ball up behind your back, all kind of things with your non-dominant hand or your left hand. And he seems to be pretty proficient at that. A lot of times, Skip, when playing horse when you were growing up, you kind of saved 1 or 2 of your shots. You didn't want to break those out too early. If the game got close, there's always something you kept in your back pocket. You're like, yes, this is the right time. But in a situation like that, you're trying to win. You're trying to advance. It wasn't like you're trying to advance. You're just trying to beat the guy you're going up against at the end of practice or something of that nature. But Skip, look, I'm sure the NBA would have loved for Steph Curry, would have loved for some of the bigger name guys to participate. But Skip, at this juncture, you take what you can get. And the NBA is trying to provide some form of entertainment, but this is the best what we got. It's kind of like the Pro Bowl, Skip. If you notice, we would have loved to have Tom Brady. When's the last time Tom Brady participated in the Pro Bowl? We'd love to get Aaron Rodgers or some of the bigger names. But for the most part, they tend to shy away. And that's what we have right now. But it was fun to watch, and I'm looking forward to watching it again because, Skip, this is the only source of live entertainment that we get. There's only so many classics that you can watch, be it football or basketball. So I'm ready to see something at least I can say, okay, this is live.
By the way, you left out one. We love to see something. We love to see LeBron James just one time in his life participate in a dunk contest. But no, we're in year 17 and LeBron has avoided the dunk contest. A little later in the show, we're going to talk about the one time that LeBron made the mistake of playing horse against a little guy half his size, but I'll get to that in a little while. Back to this competition that we saw last night. Shannon, I told you last week I got a big problem with the rules. I need the rules to be a little more specific to create a little more level, so to speak, playing field or playing driveway as it was last night. My problem with the rules is that they're saying no dunking, but you can do anything else that you want to do just short of dunking, which is why I'm going to have a hard time picking against Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine is 6 feet 6 inches tall. Zach LaVine has won 2 slam dunk contests on All-Star Weekend and was right in the middle of a couple of more that he could have won. We know he can jump out of the gym. Furthermore, we also know he can get as hot shooting threes as sometimes Steph and Klay get hot shooting threes. And he's a 38% career three-point shooter. So he's got that in his arsenal, as well as one shot that nobody in the competition can do. And that is what he did to poor Paul Pierce, who looked like he hadn't played basketball since he last played for the, the Clippers in 2017.
Clippers.
Again, yeah, Zach LaVine goes up and under by slapping one side of the backboard with his left hand and then coming back up and under with his right hand. No big deal if you're a slam dunk contest winner, but poor Paul Pierce has got no chance. He can't even, well, we used to say the last 5 years of his career, he looked like he was playing with a piano on his back. So what chance did he have of even getting like 6 inches off the ground, let alone enough to slap the backboard and go up and under? It's just not a fair fight. So if Zach LaVine is going to resort to those shots, it's impossible.
Skip, not to cut you off, but Paul Pierce in his prime couldn't have pulled that shot off, let alone 3-4 years after his prime.
No, I so agree with you. So back to Mike Conley. I love Mike Conley, and I used to hate Mike Conley because I had to watch him play my Spurs in playoff games 21 times. He haunted the Spurs. He bedeviled the Spurs. He tormented the Spurs with all manner of clutch shot making. And I kept saying, is he right-handed or left-handed? Because I don't know. Sometimes he just naturally shoots a right-handed jump shot like he's right-handed. And I say, okay, he's right-handed. Then the next time he comes down and shoots it left-handed, and I think, well, I've never seen anybody so ambidextrous. I know he shoots free throws left-handed, but he can shoot them right-handed too. I don't know. That gives him a huge distinct advantage, obviously, in a game of horse. And that one shot that he made last night where he drove down the lane and went up and under and shot sort of like a hook shot, a scoop shot, all the way back up over the backboard, back down through. That's just unfair. And then he's paired up against poor Tamika Catchings, who's 40 years of age and last played 5 years ago. And she's now the GM, obviously, of the Indiana Fever. And poor Tamika, who is an all-time great WNBA player, is stuck out on her driveway in a crosswind. And it looked like the wind chill was below 30 degrees. So she's blowing on her hand. She's having a hard time in every shot. As anybody who knows who's played driveway basketball, nothing worse than the wind to kill any kind of a shot beyond 5 feet. So that was a mismatch. But to your point, when you have Mike Conley Jr. getting to play inside his home gym, he was the only one inside. Well, that's not a fair fight because he knows all the angles, all the shots, and there's obviously going to be no wind inside his home gym in Columbus, Ohio. So now back to the rule, Shannon. If we had a rule in this competition, no shots inside the lane, then I would give Mike Conley a real shot. But I don't think even Mike can pull off, slap it. He's 6 feet tall. Can he slap one side of the backboard and scoop it up and under? Listen,
probably
Zach
not.
LaVine no, he just can't. So Zach LaVine could go right to all of his dipsy-do athletic gymnastic moves, rockabye baby. You don't have to dunk it. You could just lay it over the rim. So you can beat the system with lots of dunk contest moves without actually dunking it. And now it's not a fair fight. So I haven't even mentioned Allie Quigley yet. And she was, to me, the most impressive shooter of the whole evening. Because Allie Quigley has, she's 33 years old, but she's made the All-Star team the last 3 years. She bounced around for a while in the WNBA, but now she's with the Chicago Sky. And she was on her driveway in Deerfield, which is just north of Chicago, not far from the Berto Center where Michael Jordan's Bulls practiced. And she looked like she was Jordan-esque, at least as a competitor, because what I loved about her, and this is going to be a key, if you win the toss, you can go first. And you better make your first shot. And she did. And she got Chris Paul on his heels right from the start, because she turned right around and made a corner three. And it's like, boom, here we go. And I loved her demeanor and her backbone in this competition, because she won the toss and was like, yes. And you could tell she just said, like, here we go. Give me the ball. Let me shoot it. And once she made her first shot, then she could resort to all of her bag, so to speak, and she could pull out all kinds of shots, including the Pete Maravich Memorial. I'm going to sit on the concrete and shoot it in off the backboard. Not an easy shot, and she got a letter on Chris on that one. He hung in, made a bunch of gutsy shots. He pulled off a couple that I'd never seen, a sort of a turnaround sideways off one leg from the free throw line. He made that. She couldn't even get that one to the rim. But in the end, she just withstood the onslaught and held him off and made a lot of clutch shots. But I will say this for Allie Quigley. She had a huge advantage in her driveway because her backboard was a little flimsy. So it gave her a slight edge because she shot a lot of bank shots, a lot of bank free throws, bank threes from the top. And it was much more forgiving. Her backboard would forgive, deaden the bounce a little bit so it would fall through easier. Chris's was a rigid backboard in his backyard here in Los Angeles. It was actually out in the valley. And his shots, you have to shoot them a little more softly because they'll carry them harder off that rigid backboard. So I thought she had a slight home driveway advantage, and she's going to need every bit of it against Zach LaVine.
And that was the thing, Skip, is that when you look at it, a lot of these guys that they have, when they have equipment like that set up, it needs to be NBA official, because if you're going to practice, you need to practice on something that you're going to actually shoot on come game time. If you see Mike Conley set up, that's what he has. Chris Paul set up, although it's not indoors, I can assure you that is a regulation goal. That's regulation depth. Everything is regulation with the exception of it being outside. Skip, and remember, we talked about this. The thing that it takes to win dunk contests, to win horse or pig contests, is imagination. And the person that has the biggest imagination, willing to risk, because there's a chance you can miss and give them the ball. But you have to be willing to have an imagination, willing to risk and take chances in order for you to get that person out. And it seems to me she probably studied Pete Maravich, because I don't remember Pete Maravich pulling that shot off. That had to be skipped. That might have went back to the beginning of the All-Star game, the NBA All-Star game, when they finally merged the two leagues together. But that's what you have to have. You see Mike Conley throwing the ball over his head, over the backboard, through the net. Skip, as I told you, remember the commercial with Michael Jordan and Larry Bird was doing the McDonald's commercial. Okay, through the window, off the glass, nothing but net. And they were doing all kinds of things. And this is what you have to do. But Skip, for me, what makes this so unfair is that in competition, when you're here and I'm here, I'm going to be talking. Skip, we used to go, when I played with the Broncos, Skip, we used to go bowling. Now, like when you watch bowling on television, the competitors, one's up bowling, the other's sitting down. If they're bowling as a team, one guy's up, the rest of the guys are sitting down. Well, that's not how we bowl. When you're up and we're going against you, I'm up with you. You walk into the line bowling your ball, I'm in your ear talking trash. So Skip, it kind of defeats the purpose, because it would be a big difference if these guys were like, let's just say for the sake of argument, they're in the same gym, but maybe on different ends of the court. Understanding the situation, but because trash talk, Skip, in any sport is a big deal. I'm just not letting you just lay the ball up and just, I'm talking, man, that's garbage. You're not going to make that. And you know what happens when you miss? I'm about to run the table on you. But they kept it above the board, Skip. Everybody was like, okay, that was a good shot, yada, yada, yada. But I'm trying to win. So it's not going to be all fun and games for me. I'm talking trash from the jump.
Okay, but remember, they were or are live in each other's ears. So you can actually talk to your competitor, even as your competitor's shooting. To your point, they sort of played nice, but before Allie Quigley started to shoot a couple times, Chris Paul said something like, you better make this one or I'm going to get you. I'm ready for you. I'm going to come back on you. And you can trash talk to that extent. And if you want to take it farther, you could, as she starts to shoot her bank shot, you could say, whatever you want to say. You better make it. You could do the Noonan from Caddyshack. You don't know Caddyshack, but you could do Noonan. You could do miss it. You could do whatever. And maybe somebody will resort to that because somebody's going to have to do something to Zach LaVine, because I'm going to reiterate, I need your response to this. What if you made it can't make a shot in the lane? You can shoot it from behind the backboard. You can shoot it from out of bounds anywhere you want to shoot it. You can shoot it as far back as you want to. But what if they had a rule, no lane shots? Would that be fairer to you? Would you like that? Would that make the competition more 50-50 for everybody involved?
Well, Skip, I kind of like it like this, as long as you can't dunk the basketball, because when you Skip, when you bring that into play, no dunks, now the smaller guys, the Trae Youngs, the Allie Quigleys, now they have a fair opportunity, because I dunk with two hands, that's H. I dunk with one hand, that's O. I come up under the backboard and dunk. So, Skip, if I win the toss, I can literally dunk you out of the game. At least now, Skip, the women, well, Trae Young is gone, they have a fair opportunity. A lot of times, Skip, you do different types of English off the glass. Okay, I'm going to spin it like this off the glass, and the ball goes in. Winning the coin toss, getting the first opportunity is huge. But, Skip, what's the likelihood of somebody winning and deferring like we see in football? See, you can't do that because this is basically overtime rules. Nobody's deferring the ball, Skip, in football if we get the ball in overtime. We're not deferring. We might defer at the start of the game, but we're not deferring. So for me, Skip, I don't have a problem with it being shots in the lane as long as you can't dunk, because it levels the playing field. Even for Chris Paul. Chris Paul got his outfit on. He doesn't have on basketball equipment. So the likelihood of someone being able to dunk the ball other than Zach LaVine dressed like that is basically slim to none. So, yeah, Zach LaVine has a decided advantage, but because you can't dunk, it lets Quigley, it lets Conley, it lets, who did you say the other guy was? Quigley, Conley, Zach LaVine, who's the other? I forget the other competitor. They have a fair chance as long as Chauncey. Mm-hmm. Chauncey can shoot. Chauncey always can shoot. So he's always going to have an opportunity to win, Skip, because that's how he got his name, Mr. Big Shot. If there was a big shot, he was willing to take it, and more times than not, he was making it. So he's going to be a major player in this, Skip, because he can shoot. I just hope he don't get one of those days that it starts to snow in Denver, because then all bets are off. Okay, here's my issue, and I still think you're not addressing it. What if Zach LaVine wins the toss, and against Allie Quigley, he does some up and under, tap the glass with his left hand and almost dunk it? Well, it's just, she's 5'10". She's a three-point shooting specialist. She has won the WNBA's three-point shootout twice. She's an extraordinary three-point shooter with great touch, great feel off the backboard, very inventive and clever in all those shots. She can shoot it from behind the backboard. That's all great. But if you ask her to do some slam dunk contest kind of move without quite dunking it, it's almost like the days of, the early days of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They said you can't dunk, so they would just, Wilt Chamberlain in those days, the earliest days, you just lay it over the rim. So, so that's not technically a dunk, and Zach can resort to just lay it over the rim with some skydive maneuver, and poor Allie, she can't contend with that. Mike Conley couldn't contend with that. Chauncey definitely couldn't contend with that. So now, to me, the rules are rigged for this guy, unless he wants to just say, let's fight fair. And if Zach LaVine wants to match three-point shooting or long-distance touch shooting, backboard shooting with Allie, now we got a fair fight. And I might just have my money on Allie there.
And if Allie could win the toss and make the first shot, that's the only way. She's got to keep Zach LaVine from being able to do his dunk contest maneuvers by just making shots. If you'll make 5 or 6 straight shots, you got a good chance, because maybe you'll get him down to HOR, and maybe he'll have to resort to his dunk contest moves, and maybe you can still hold him off somehow. But this way, man, I just don't like the rules. To me, it's rigged for Zach LaVine.
Well, you should have hoped someone could have got Zach LaVine out, because like you're saying, Skip, because he literally can take the ball, hit the backboard, lay it in. Well, she's not touching the backboard with the ball and laying it in. So there's a lot of things that he can do. Like you said, she's basically going to have to win the toss and get hot. If she gets hot because she can shoot the ball. Now, Skip, Zach LaVine is not a slouch shooting the ball. He's had a game where he's went bonkers shooting the three. Ask Charlotte. Charlotte had them down with about 30 seconds to go, and they were down like 10 or 12 points. And he gets them back. He wins the ball game. He steals the ball, runs to the past the three-point line, a la Ray Allen, and nails a three with no time on the clock. So he's had games where, because he was in contention, Skip, to be an all-star, he really, had they not had such a horrendous record, he really should have been an all-star, because he's played unbelievable this year. He can get hot from the three, but I believe her only chance is, Skip, if she wins the toss, and as you said, put pressure on him. She get a quick HOR on him, and now he starts to press, because I don't believe that if he wins the toss, he's going to probably start with something routine, even though it's routine. You and I say it's routine, but it's probably something that she can't do. Maybe just, palm the basketball, because he can palm it, touch the backboard with the ball, and then shoot it in. What's she going to do with that, Skip?
I don't know.
Unless you go to Brittany Griner's height.
Yeah, there you go. But again, Zach's up there in Snohomish, which is north of Seattle, and it looks like he's got his own training complex. It looked like it had multiple fields and courts, and I don't know what's going on, but he's got home court advantage, because he loves his home court and seemed to know it very well and have a good feel for the distances and how to shoot beyond the three-point line. But that brings me back to the start, and that brings me back to the guy you love, the guy I'm still skeptical of, University of Oklahoma's Trae Young, who was back in Norman, Oklahoma, out, I think it was in his literal driveway. It almost looked like it was at his parents' house where he grew up, because, Shannon, to your early point, what kind of a rim and basket was that? I mean, listen, the rim was bent down like this. It is like 8 inches bent this way, and it's a raggedy old net with strings hanging down from it. I'm thinking, Trae, you make more money than that. You were high pick, come on. You can't you afford to, even if it's even your folks' home, can't you afford to put up a better net than that? Can't you even afford to get the rim bent back to parallel? I don't know what he was doing. And then it was probably pretty windy, because I grew up in Oklahoma City near Norman, and it's usually, if not always, windy there. And I played a whole lot of outdoor basketball in Oklahoma City, and usually you have to play the wind on your shot. I'm going to have to play a little left to make it go right. And he shot one air ball from three where he just seemed to be completely overmatched. And yet I thought he would try his signature shot, which is a logo shot. I thought he'd go back by the garage door and at least try to get one letter that way. And no, he just didn't try much of anything, and he seemed overmatched the whole time. And he was obviously worried about keeping his hoodie up, because he's not real great with his hair at this point in his life. And so his hoodie would blow back down, and it would bother him, and it would kind of shake him up and distract him. So he was having all kinds of problems. He got off to a roaring great start. And then Mr. Big Shot, who literally has a home court that has his nicknames. He's got 2 nicknames, one's Smooth, one's Mr. Big Shot, on the court in Denver. And here he came. And once he got in a rhythm and started making shots, he was just flat out Mr. Big Shot, and Trae got blown off his home court in Norman.
And Skip, the thing is with Chauncey, and if I'm not mistaken, it might have snowed yesterday in Colorado, because if you notice, Skip, he kept blowing his hands. Now, this time of year, is it really cold? I don't know if you've ever been to Denver, but hey, having played there for 12 years, it gets cold, and it snows a lot. and the weather changes. And for him to have that kind of shoot, well, first of all, it just goes to show you what type of shooter that he was. Because, Skip, the one thing that you know about shooters, they can shoot. It doesn't matter inside, outside, blacktop, hardwood, concrete, dirt. It does not matter. A guy or a gal that can shoot no matter where. And Chauncey Billups can shoot. And as you bitch, I'm looking at Trey's. I'm like, Trey, your thing leaning like, your goal leaning like mine leaning in my front yard. But Skip, it was a little leaning. It was a little leaning. It didn't have the wooden backboard like we have, because you know what happens, Skip. You leave those out in the elements. It rains. You might get a little snow here and there. The wind blows it, so it's leaning to the right, maybe leaning to the left, or leaning forward a little bit. But all in all, Skip, it was good. I understand that Adam Silver tried to put something on, try to provide entertainment, and I'm sure we would love to see Diana Taurasi. We would love to see Miles Moore. We would love to see Steph and Clay and KD, James Harden, guys that shoot threes and can make. For sure we would have. But, Skip, at this point, it's kind of like the home run derby. We don't always get the biggest names in the home run derby. They try. They try to get the Mike Trouts and the Bryce Harper. Then occasionally they've gotten those guys, Barry Bonds and McGuire and Sosa. But, sometimes you're like, who is he? Dude got 5 home runs. Why is he in the home run contest, the home run derby?
Yep. So one last thought on Trae Young. I don't think that the rim was bent down because he was dunking on it as he was growing up, because we know Trae is barely 6 feet tall. So maybe it was a neighborhood thing where all the kids came over to play with Trae and other guys were dunking, because it looked like it had been dunked on a bunch until they were starting to literally tear the rim down. So again, maybe Trae just said that this is, I'm just going to go with the flow of this is real driveway horse on the goal that I grew up on. I have no idea. But to your final point, I was very happy to watch it. I frankly went into it very skeptically, and then I'm so starved because I didn't have my Masters. We didn't have our Masters yesterday. We got to hear Tiger talk about it with Jim Nantz on CBS, but we didn't have it. I've seen replays of every Masters ever played, but we didn't have the Masters. And we don't have our NBA, and we might not have our NBA playoffs. We don't know yet, but we did have Driveway Horse, and I have really enjoyed opening this show talking about a live sports event with my man Shannon Sharpe, and I'm looking forward, crazy as it might sound, to Thursday night when they're going to have the semifinal, and I think the final also is on Thursday night. I'm not sure about that, but I am looking forward to it because it gives us something to react to and something to take our minds away just for a few minutes from what we're all going through.
You're correct, Skip. That final also Thursday. And hey, it wasn't perfect, but it was something, right? It was something for us to see, to enjoy, and that's all we can ask for at this point.
No mercy.
Welcome back to Undisputed. Former Buccaneers head coach and current Tampa Bay resident Tony Dungy said over the weekend that Bucs fans' expectations are similar to Patriots fans' expectations from recent years. Dungy also added that Bucs fans are now asking who they will be facing in the Super Bowl. So, Shannon, in your opinion, can Tom Brady live up to these expectations, these runaway expectations?
No, because in order for him to live up to those expectations, they need to be undefeated, get to the Super Bowl, win it with a perfect 19-0 record. Tom Brady needs to be the unanimous MVP, throw for 65 touchdowns, and then he can live up to those expectations. But this is nothing new to me, Skip, because if you notice, these delusional Cowboy fans say this every year. We're going to the Super Bowl. I wonder who the Cowboys going to play in the Super Bowl. Nobody, because y'all won't be there. The Packers, you don't think, hold on. Kansas City. What do you think the fans in Kansas City expectation is? They got my homeboy, the best player in the league, and they bring back about 95% of their starting roster back. What are their expectations? Granted, I understand that this is newfound expectations for the Bucs. But, Skip, the problem that I have is that people do not understand. It takes time. Now, we don't know when the season, because we're probably going to have a shortened offseason, might have a shortened preseason, and then they're going to kick this thing off. Skip. And BA's offense, Bruce Arians, the head coach, his offense is designed to push the ball down the field. In order to push the ball down the field, you have to hold on to the ball. When you hold on to the ball, it gives the defenders an extra opportunity to get closer to you and put you on the ground. Tom understands that. We started to see things last year when they started to dial up the pressure. Tom had one of the worst completion percentage. He started to flinch. We saw that, Skip. That is unrefutable. And defensively, I know they were number one in the rush, but they were 30th against the pass. And it seems like the secondary is their weak link. So when you're 30th against the pass and you have a guy that led the league in sacks, what's going on, Skip? So the expectations, I believe, for the Bucs are unrealistic. I get that you have Tom Brady, but she's a 43-year-old Tom Brady, and he's not used to taking this kind of punishment. In this offense, he's more susceptible to getting hurt because of holding on to the ball for extended periods of time.
So I loved how you initially tried to make this about the Cowboys and the Packers and the Chiefs, when we are talking about a team that just 3 weeks ago was the Succaneers. Just 3 weeks ago, this was the most woeful franchise in all of sports, with an overall career winning percentage of .387, worse than any franchise in any sport. And now, all of a sudden, Tampa fans are harking back to the glory days, or I should say sort of day, because it was singular, of the Super Bowl that came after the 2002 season. That's a long time ago, but that's the last the last period that they wore these uniforms. They have just revived and sort of updated. And that was all planned before they were able to land the great Tom Brady. So all of a sudden, it seems fortuitous. It seems meant to be that, oh, we're going back to the Super Bowl era uniforms. And all of a sudden, Tom Brady picked us. He picked the Succaneers. Well, what would you think? Because Tom Brady, we all know, does his homework. He studies the way very few people have ever studied the game of football, this side of Peyton Manning. And he knew full well when he chose the Buccaneers and shocked the NFL world that this year they are going to have the Super Bowl in their home stadium. No home team has ever played in a home Super Bowl. And you know it, that deep down, the GOAT is saying, I got a shot here to take a team from 7-9 to play in a home Super Bowl. How great would that be? Well, that would be the ultimate watch this to Bill Belichick. And you know and I know Tom Brady is going to be all-time driven to show Belichick how wrong he was, to completely and consistently disrespect Tom Brady over the last 3 years that he was a New England Patriot. So, yes, these are runaway expectations, but this is exactly what Tom Brady wants. He's trying to fuel the expectations. He's the one who's trademarking everything that's TB times TB. Anything with Tom Brady, Tampa Bay in it, he's trademarking. He finally did the show that he loves the most, the Howard Stern show, last Wednesday. And then he's moved into the great Derek Jeter's Ocean View mansion in Tampa. So it feels like a harmonic convergence of everything is right on time coming together. And Tom loves it because what's his number one goal is to recreate a Patriots-like winning culture in Tampa. And to do so, you need a groundswell of support from the community, and you need every player in that locker room to start thinking, gee, now we're going to walk on the field thinking we can win every game, when obviously last year at 7-9 and the previous, say, 15 years, the Bucs walked on the field half thinking that they were going to lose this game, or at least that they could or should lose this game. So Brady will be on fire with the momentum of this because, as we know, he didn't ask for more money. He didn't ask for more control. He just asked for the phone numbers of his offensive teammates so that he could at least FaceTime with them during our quarantine to get to know them and what they love the most, what routes they love, what they're off the field, what they're all about. So he is already starting to recreate a culture, And I loved what Tony Dungy said, because this feeds into the new culture. It's a winning culture because it's all a mindset. You know this from your 2 Broncos Super Bowl teams and your Ravens Super Bowl team. When you walked on the field, you thought you were going to win the game. And Brady's trying to teach a whole new community and locker room how to feel walking onto the field like this is going to be our game. I love this, and I think Tom will feed off the frenzy of this.
Well, Skip, I think the thing is for me is that, one, when I had John and I had him under center from 90 to 98, there's something to be said. See, even when I had the Ravens defense, and I believe that's the greatest defense of all time, historically great defenses, it still was predicated on what? If our quarterback does not turn the football over. When you have that guy under center, there's something different about you. You expect to win. You know we might not play our best, but we're still capable of winning this game because we have that guy. That's how it is in Tampa. But Skip, this notion that Tom Brady said, you know what? The Super Bowl's in Tampa Bay. Let me go to Tampa Bay. Tom Brady knew full well of the teams that were interested in him. Tampa had the best supporting offensive staff. Yeah, Kansas City might be better, but there is no place for him to go in Kansas City. Say the Saints, their comp, nowhere to go. Seattle with Metcalf and the Lockett and those, nowhere to go. This was the best situation. Tom Brady is full aware of his legacy. Tom Brady was well aware of what this means. I've got to go somewhere that has weapons offensively so I can still showcase what I can do. Skip, he wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't going to Cincinnati. He wasn't going to the Bears. He wasn't going to some team that we don't have offensive firepower. Tom Brady, the Super Bowl could have been played on the moon. And I still believe Tom Brady was going to end up in Tampa Bay because they presented him the best chance for him to show he still can play at an elite level. It had nothing to do with the Super Bowl was going to be played. It had everything to do with the supporting cast on that side of the football. So this notion that Tom Brady wants to go, he wants to be the first to play the Super Bowl in his backyard, no. Tom Brady wants to show that he still can play at an elite level, and Godwin and Mike Evans and Brady and O.J. Howard presents him with that best chance. Cincinnati was in the line for a quarterback. I think Cincinnati was saying, okay, we get Tom Brady, we'll trade you a Miami 3 first-round picks to get Joe Burrow. But he wanted no part of that. So stop this notion, Skip Bayless. Tom Brady was full aware of what's going on.
So, Shannon Sharpe, we probably talked for 3 months about all the possibilities that Brady could take advantage of in the NFL other than the New England opportunity, if in fact there was going to be one. We talked about all the possible destinations, and I don't think we ever even brought up the possibility of Tampa. Maybe you did, but I don't remember you bringing up Tampa, right? No. So did this not come out of the blue? Did you think it was a slam dunk for Tom to go to Tampa because you never said that before he suddenly shocked the world by going there?
No, Skip. For me, I said the biggest thing for Tom, what's most important to him is not location, it's his ability to win right now. For me, Indy, because of the offensive line, they have a sound running game. They got T.Y. Hilton. They got Jack Doyle. They have pieces in place that, they just traded for Buckner. And so they still have cap space. They can go into the draft. They can draft a receiver if that's what they want, if that's the direction they wanted to go. So I thought the best situation was probably Indy. My whole thing was, Skip, it's about winning. It's not about being comfortable. It's not about, the school system isn't very good. Tom Brady understands he needs to win in order to make this thing right. In order for him to be right, he has to win. It's not about playing, he wants to play till he's 48. That's fine, well and good. The longer you play and the less you win, the greater Bill Belichick's legacy gets enhanced. Because you see, he had 3, 4, 5 years without Coach Belichick, and he couldn't get it done. So in the process of him thinking that he can play till he's 48, all he does is increase Coach Belichick was right. Because you see, he hasn't been back. Tom needed to win. And looking at these weapons around him, Skip, they present him a favorable opportunity Not to say they're going to, but they present him probably the most favorable of all the situations. Skip, we just couldn't wrap our mind. Tampa, he ain't going to Tampa. But when you look at it, Skip, if you and I would have just sat down and we went through skill position by skill position, we probably, it would have ended up coming to, yeah, that makes the most sense, because you look at 2 Pro Bowl receivers, 2 tight ends that's probably on the cusp of going to the Pro Bowl. Yeah, this is an ideal landing spot. Now, the defense still, Skip, I still believe a lot to be desired, because the secondary isn't very good. But from Tom Brady's point of view, Tom just has to worry about the offensive side. He's going to let Todd Bowles handle the defensive side. But if he goes out there and this offense can gel the way the fans in Tampa think it can, yes, it can be something special.
Okay, so big picture on this question that Jenny asked about feeling the pressure, runaway expectations. Help me out here. Has there ever been any player in the history of sports who's more capable of standing up to expectations than Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr.? There's never been anybody who's felt more expectations for a longer period of time than Tom Brady, the GOAT. Because think about it, Shannon. If you look at just the years he started for New England, and if you knock out the 1 year he got hurt in the opening game, 15 snaps into the game, so let's just cancel that year out, that would mean that he was the starter for 18 full seasons. One season he had the 4-game suspension to start, but still I'm going to give that a full season. So 18 seasons as starter. Yeah, he went to 9 Super Bowls in 18 years. That's impossibly all-time great. 9 times he went to the Super Bowl, and when they weren't going to the Super Bowl, everybody expected them to get to and win the Super Bowl. At least a majority of the experts did. So for 18 starting seasons, he's lived with runaway expectations. So do you think that he's choking under the load of that? No. I mean, he loves this. This is why he went to Tampa. He's going to help hype the expectation. He wants them to be more than runaway. He wants them to be off the rails expectations, because that will only lift everybody up to a new level of thinking where, gee, maybe we are the team to beat in the NFC South. Again, 7-9 last year. I got them going 12-4 next year. I forget what you had them at, maybe 9-7 or so, something like that.
10-6.
You got him 10-6? Wow, you must think.
I gave a bit of.
You must think he's really good at age 43.
No. Skip, remember before Fox Bet came out, and I think Fox Bet put it at 9.5. I was at, I said 10-6, maybe 11-5. I said, no, I'm going to stay at 10-6. I like 10-6. I think they can increase. I think Tom Brady's probably 3 games better than Jameis, considering that he will not throw half as many, maybe interceptions, or half as many turnovers as Jameis had. I think Jameis had 35 total turnovers, 30 interceptions, 5 fumbles, so 35. So if Tom Brady turns the ball over half, that should equate to a few more wins. But Skip, the difference is between Tampa and New England. New England generally had realistic expectations of getting to and winning the Super Bowl, because they had done that every year. They won the division, and more times than not, they were the number 1 or the number 2 seed. So they were always getting at least 1 game at home before having to get out on the road, because it was going to be the divisional round at home, and then they're going to have to go to someone's building like they did Pittsburgh a couple of times, like they did to Kansas City 2 years ago. So the expectations for them, ever since they won that second Super Bowl, was like, hold on, we got a guy that's won 2 Super Bowls and he's 25, 26 years of age. What's to say this guy can't string together 5, 6, 7 more opportunities? And lo and behold, that's what he did. He strung together 7 more opportunities. So the expectations were realistic, because every year they're 12-4, 13-3, 14-2, and you're like, this can't be real. So those fans, it's like, Skip, it was a terrible year when they went 12-4, 11-5.
I don't know. If memory serves, I could have sworn that last week when we first heard Fox Bet had the over-under at 9.5. maybe I'm foggy on this one. I thought you
that was
were
the
at
Cowboys.
9. I thought you were just under.
That was the Cowboys.
That was the Cowboys. Maybe
that was
so.
the Cowboys. Okay. That was the Cowboys.
Okay. All right. Now, back to the defense. You said that the secondary is very suspect. I'm going to remind you, and trust me, Tom Brady did his homework on this. The Tampa Bay defense last year inherited the worst field position in the entire National Football League because Jameis turned it over 12 more times than any other quarterback in the entire league. So you've got 30 interceptions, 5 lost fumbles. You got 7 pick sixes. Those don't even count in inherited field position. But the defense was psychologically bludgeoned by the quarterback. It's hard to go through so many sudden changes where you're like, we got to go right back out there and fight again in this Tampa heat.
It is.
And if you take those away, again, 35 total turnovers. Brady last year had 9. So 35 to 9. Well, if Brady keeps it around 10-ish, 11, 12, they're going to throw it a whole lot. Well, that's still so many fewer turnovers that I think you're going to see Todd Bowles' defense really come to life. And they got studs all over that front 7. They were number 1 against the run. You could be right. That's possibly because people were throwing it a lot more than they're running it. But they were second in sacks, and Shaq Barrett was first in sacks. So you've got lots of firepower, and you've got one of the top defensive coordinators. He's not quite Belichick, but he's close in Todd Bowles, a much better coordinator than a head coach. So I think Brady is also banking on that defense to hold up its end of the bargain in ways Belichick's defense last year could not down the stretch for the Patriots.
Well, Skip, maybe if they can get out to a lead and force the team to just throw the ball and take away the ability to run the football. Skip, when Jameis was putting him in bad position, I mean, you just run the ball for 2 or 3 yards. Yeah, your yards per carry is bad, but you're just giving up a touchdown because Jameis has turned the ball over and put you on a short field. But Skip, if Brady is what you believe he can be and what these fans can believe he can be, it will relieve some of the pressure off the defense. But you know, Skip, they want to push the ball down the field. And in order to push the ball down the field, you have to put your quarterback in harm's way. That's all I'm saying.
And all I'm saying is, I believe Tom Brady is having the time of his life now in Tampa Bay. I think he's having more fun in Tampa than he ever had in any single year in New England.
No mercy.
All right, guys, over the weekend, Todd Gurley told 92.9 The Game that Deion Sanders had not given him his blessing to wear number 21 with the Falcons. Well, since then, Deion has tweeted that he was only joking with Todd, and it wasn't the number that made Prime, but Prime that made the number. And I can hear him saying it just that way. So, Shannon, are you surprised that Todd Gurley wants to wear number 21?
No, I mean, he was 3 in college. He was 30 in the NFL. I thought he would just naturally go back to number 30, but I understand there's a gentleman that has the number that just switched to 30 last year in order to honor his brother who had passed away recently. So obviously that was off the table. But numbers mean things to players. Jenny, because I was 1, which means I wasn't expected to get a number by the time training camp was over with. So they was just going to take that 1, put it back, and Shannon Sharpe was going to be on its way. But when I made the team, basically all the 80 numbers were taken. So, you know, I had a choice. I could get 81, I could get 85 or 87. Well, Mark Jackson was 80, Vance was 82. He's like, hey, man, why don't you just go ahead and take 81 so we'll be 80 through 84? Because 80 was Mark, Vance was 82, Michael Young was 83, and Ricky Nattiel was 84. I was 81. But it means something. Now, I go to Baltimore. 84, Jermaine Lewis doesn't want to part with that number. And I didn't want 88 because I thought 88 was a dumb-looking number. I said, nah, I don't want that. I wanted 82. So you know what I did? I said, Freaky Frank, that's what we call it, Freaky Frank Wainwright. I want the number. He's like, okay. I said, I'll buy you, he's a fisherman. I bought him a bass boat. I got the number. So the numbers mean something. I understand that, you know, Skip, I wanted 82. I wanted an even number. I didn't want 88, and I didn't want no odd number because it looks ridiculous. And so I partied with that number. But it's not like Atlanta, Skip. Atlanta, look, I grew up in Georgia all my life. It's not like they got a storied history like the Steelers or the Bears or the Packers or, something like that. I mean, for the most part, they got a few good players, but I guess from what I was reading, Skip, they haven't retired anyone's number. So probably, some of the most famous players in Falcons history, not a whole lot of people know if you don't follow the NFL. Tommy Nobis, he was their first, overall pick, Skip, if I'm not mistaken, in '66. Bartkowski, Billy White, Hughes Johnson. And on defensive side, I think Claude Humphrey plays there, Dion and Jesse Tuggle. But when you think of 21, Skip, and you Atlanta, it's time. They still wear those 21 jerseys. Time hadn't played there in over 2 decades. But when you go to Atlanta and you see someone in a 21 Falcons jersey, they think time. D'Angelo Hall has had that number. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Marcus Trufant had that number. But it's time. But I guess Gurley says, hey, I'm going to make it even more famous. I rubbed it in because I know time watching. He about to make 21 more famous than the original 21. That's what's about to happen. Run that thing, TG.
Okay. I'm going to rise above this, and I'm going to ask the question that needs to be asked. And I get it that you grew up in Georgia and you still have a home in the Atlanta area. I cannot fathom, I cannot understand or comprehend how the Falcons couldn't have at least retired just one number in their history, because it's the number, as you point out. You have to retire 21. This is Deion Sanders. He was early on Neon Deion, and then he became prime time. There's never been anything in the history of this league like Deion Sanders. He is by far the greatest cornerback who ever stepped on a football field. It is football blasphemy not to have retired that number, and then to let Desmond Trufant wear it after he was drafted in the first round, 22 overall, in 2013. You realize that over the last 7 years, the Falcons allowed Desmond Trufant to wear that hallowed, beloved number 21 as a cornerback. And he did make one Pro Bowl, but just one Pro Bowl in 2015. And then they recently cut him. So remember, the Atlanta Falcons cut a guy who was wearing the most hallowed number 21. And I'm dumbfounded, because not only to me is Deion the greatest cornerback by far, Shannon, to me, he's the greatest athlete who ever played. And I know we could debate that all day and all night, but listen, Deion was the starting center fielder for the New York Yankees and the Atlanta Braves and the Cincinnati Reds. Deion Sanders in Florida, in Fort Myers, was all-state in basketball. And I'll never forget the line Barry Switzer told me. This is in the 1995 season when they first acquired Deion. Obviously, he won one Super Bowl in San Francisco and turned around the next year and helped the Cowboys get over the hump against the 49ers and win the next Super Bowl. And Barry Switzer watched him on the practice field after the first couple of camp practices and said, it's like he's not governed by our same gravity, like there's something that doesn't hold him back, because as you remember, he ran 4.27 at the combine, and that was without even warming up. He had his sweats on, and they said, you gonna run? He said, well, I don't know. Do you really want? Yeah, run. Okay, I'll run 140. And he unzips his sweat top, takes it off, takes his sweatpants off, and goes 4.27. He wasn't governed as a player by our same gravity. And so when you've got that guy, and I realize you had him for 5 years, then he went to San Francisco, then he went to Dallas, obviously went to the Redskins, and he went to the Ravens. I get all that. But for 5 years, he showed you he was the most dominating cornerback in the league, and he made 3 straight Pro Bowls. And as you know, Shannon, he was also the most dangerous, lethal kick returner in the league, especially in those first 5 years in Atlanta. I've just never seen anything like him on a football field. And I get it that the Falcons have not had the prettiest past, but if you got a guy who made that number what it is, he made it prime time's number, then you should have retired it a long time ago. I can't believe we're even having to have this conversation. It's shameful that we're talking about Desmond Trufant and then Todd Gurley. And I love Todd Gurley, but what has he proven yet? Is he a Hall of Fame running back? I don't know. Maybe he'll bounce back and show us that, but I haven't seen all that just yet. I know he had one huge year, but can you have another couple of those to make it a Hall of Fame run? I don't know. And we're talking about, should Todd Gurley wear number 21? I don't even care. I only care that this franchise, this woeful franchise, has made a lot of bad decisions, but it made the worst decisions not retiring 21.
Well, Skip, I think the thing is that what happened is that when Mr. Blank, you got to realize Mr. Blank was not the original owner. He was not the owner at the time that Time was drafted. And so I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Rankin Smith owned the team then, and he ended up buying it from him. And so, Skip, for me, a lot of that has to do with, like, the ownership at the time. For me, Skip, I believe if a guy goes to the Hall of Fame and his primary career was within that uniform, they should, out of respect, they should retire the number. That's just me personally. But hey, I understand when you get situations like the Bears and the Giants and the Packers, Skip, they've had so many players that's in the Hall of Fame, you're going to run out of numbers. You know, they got 20, 25 guys in the Hall of Fame. You only have so many numbers, Skip. So I get situations like that. But I don't think the Falcons are going to have to worry about that problem. I don't think they're going to have to worry about, well, we can't retire this number because we're about to run out of numbers like some of these other storied franchises. Because you got to realize, Skip, the Giants have been playing since the 20s, the Steelers since the 30s, and some of these teams, the Packers, their original team, the Acme Packers. So they go back, and so you can understand when they win 5, 6, 7 championships before it became the Super Bowl. So you can understand they've had a lot of great players that's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But when you look at the Falcons, they've only got a handful of them. Claude Humphreys played, Dion, and Morton Anderson. If I'm not mistaken, Skip, those are the only guys that's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame that spent a portion of their career with the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah. But if you from Atlanta, if you follow the Falcons, it's Deion Sanders and Mike Vick. Mike might be a little bit more popular because he played the quarterback, the Michael Vick experience, but those are the two most popular players in Falcons history. And I don't care who you poll, those are the two. It's Mike Vick and Deion.
Okay, and remember this, Shannon. Remember how fortunate, how blessed, how flat out lucky that the Atlanta Falcons were in the 1989 draft. 89. Remember, it goes Troy Aikman, number 1. I'm good with that. Tony Mandarich went to Green Bay, number 2. That's where Deion should have gone. You could argue I would have taken him if I were Detroit over Barry Sanders, and I definitely would have taken him, as great as Derek Thomas ended up being. I would have taken Deion Sanders over Derek Thomas to Kansas City at 4. But they were very blessed that he fell to 5 in the 89 draft. Right. So,
but Skip,
come on. You got to be thankful for what he brought to you.
The reason why Kansas City didn't take him, they had 2 all-pro corners, and Albert Lewis and Kevin Ross. They had 2 Pro Bowl, 2 all-pro corners, so they say they wanted a pass rusher. Now, him going, look, you can't fault Detroit for taking Barry Sanders 15,000 yards and 2. But the mistake was at 2.
I can. I'm sorry. Yeah.
But Skip, the mistake, because if you look at it, Skip, everybody in the top 5 made the Hall of Fame with the exception of Tony Mandarich. So everybody got their pick right. He was very, I mean, look, it's hard to argue that draft. I think Time could, if Barry theoretically, Skip, should have went to Green Bay. And then, okay, if you want to rearrange it, because there's no way I'm taking an offensive lineman over Barry Sanders, because the offensive lineman can't put points on the board. That guy's going to put points on the board. He's going to put butts in the seat, Skip, because they want to see what he's going to do. Nobody's going to watch. Man, I can't wait to see Tony Mandarich pancake somebody. But Skip, I agree with you. Being from Atlanta and still have a home in the Buckhead area, Skip, Deion is it. Michael Vick. Hell, they should retire Michael Vick because they're never going to get nobody that can generate that kind of excitement. Matt Ryan can win 3 Super Bowls. He's never going to generate the excitement that Michael Vick generated. No, and they still show up to the Mercedes-Benz Dome wearing 7 jerseys. And Michael Vick hadn't played in Atlanta in, 13, 14 years?
No, I hear you. So I'm going to conclude our discussion with Deion's favorite hashtag, Hashtag truth.
Hashtag truth. Skip, well said. Well said. I like the way we're ending that one for now. No mercy. Welcome back to Undisputed. Last week, a fan poll crowned Michael Jordan the college basketball GOAT. But over the weekend, Bill Walton weighed in and he said, wait just a second. The GOAT is actually Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, not MJ. So, Shannon, this question for you. Do you still feel as strongly as you did before that Kareem is the GOAT?
Skip, we can debate a lot of things on here, and we do. We can debate who's the GOAT of quarterbacks, who's the greatest player in football. We can debate that. We can have a discussion about who's the greatest basketball player. You say Jordan, I say LeBron. We can debate about that. There are a lot of things we can debate about. But there's one thing that we should never, ever debate, and that's who's the greatest college basketball player of all time. It's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and it's not even close. Now, Walton has a case for being second. Now, Bill Walton won 3 National Players of the Year. He was a 3-time All-American. He was 2 times Final Four Most Outstanding Player. He was a part of a team that won 88 straight games, Skip. And if you remember, they lost, I think, November or maybe even December to the Notre Dame team. Digger Phelps just lost to his Notre Dame team. They ended up losing, I think, in the semifinals to North Carolina State, David Thompson, who the Skywalker that ended up winning the Final Four that year. Skip, it's not even close. There should never been a discussion. When it comes to certain things, there should not even be a discussion. Who's the greatest college basketball player? It should be Kareem. The first words out of everybody's mouth should be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Skip, for me, Michael Jordan's not even the top 10. Not top 10 college. Tell me he had a better career than, Kareem, Bill Russell, Christian Laettner, Walton, Patrick Ewing, Ralph Sampson, Tim Duncan. Ralph Sampson, Skip, won 4 ACC Player of the Year. He was 3-time All-American, 3-time. Come on, Skip. Look, I love Jordan. He's great, but you cannot take what he did in the NBA and transport it back to college. He had a very good college career. But Skip, Christian Laettner, Skip, he didn't have the greatest college career on the Tar Heels. Tyler Hansbrough had a better college career than Michael. You know that, Skip. Stop this. This is not to diminish the man. He played unbelievable. And I agree. Maybe Coach Smith held him back. But to say Michael Jordan with 1 Player of the Year, 1, and 1 Final Four. Skip, why didn't he get back to the Final Four once Big Game James Worthy left? If he's that dude, he got back. So for me, it's not even close. It should be everybody, out of everybody's mouth, instantaneous, the whole world. The greatest college basketball player, all 7 billion people should say in unison, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And you know it, Skip. You need to stop this.
I haven't started yet, but I'm about to. I'm about to unleash on you. I love your line. This is not to diminish Michael Jordan. Yes, it is. That's all you're trying to do.
No, it's not.
Because it is haunting you. It is driving you out of your mind that the fans on the ESPN poll voted Jordan the greatest college player, on top of the fact that you know and I know he's the greatest NBA player ever. And just to sort of piggyback and echo what you're saying about Kareem as a college player, everybody out there except you and a few billion blind witnesses know that Michael Jeffrey Jordan was the greatest basketball player in history, the greatest performer in the history of sports. You out of everybody's mouth should come Michael Jordan as soon as the GOAT question comes up. And you are haunted this week. You're driven crazy by the fact that you know there's a buildup on ESPN toward the Last Dance documentary that is coming up on Sunday night on ESPN, featuring the life and times as a Chicago Bull of Michael Jeffrey Jordan. I can't wait for it, but you know and I know that this week is going to be dedicated to the buildup of that. So now you hear Bill Walton say, oh, well, it's obviously Kareem was the greatest college player ever. And you did fail to remind everybody that Bill Walton followed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, then Lou Alcindor, at UCLA. So they're UCLA brethren. That, yes, that's why he's going to defend Kareem, is because Bill was a Bruin just like Kareem was a Bruin. So I get that. But Shannon, I just need to put this back in perspective. Did Kareem ever hit a shot to win the national championship game with 15 seconds left, a jump shot from about 20 feet to win the national championship for the Tar Heels? No, right?
Skip, is that what you basically, Skip, first of all, I thought we've gone through this. He hit the shot with 15 seconds. So there was still time. If Freddie Brown does not make the blunder, Skip, he thought his guy, the guy tried to go and he went back door, and he didn't realize the guy was going back door, and James Worthy overplayed it, and he threw the ball to James Worthy. Skip, I get it. Michael hit that shot. They ended up winning the game. But Skip, he won one national title. He was not the most outstanding player in that game. James Worthy. That season, James Worthy was National College Player of the Year. In the following year, guess who was National College Player of the Year? Ralph the 7'4" Sampson. Now, I'm confused. If Michael Jordan is the GOAT, why wasn't he Player of the Year? Why wasn't he ACC Player of the Year? Ralph Sampson was. You know how I know? Because I was a big Ralph Sampson fan, and I followed it. At Virginia, Ralph Sampson. Look it up. Go ahead.
I thought you told me you were a Carolina Tar Heel fan. That's what you told me. Am I right about that?
Skip, I am a Tar Heel fan. I was and still am a Tar Heel fan. But I had never seen anything as tall as Ralph. 7'4", Skip. I'm like, man, he's just dunking on everybody's head.
Thank you for bringing that up. So before I leave behind the shot from 20 feet that won the national championship in the greatest collection of talent I've ever seen on one floor, 1982 NCAA Finals. I was there in New Orleans at courtside watching some kid named Mike Jordan take and make that shot. They were down one. It was do or die. I realized that Freddie Brown threw it to James Worthy, but still, that's 15 seconds left. You were down one, and he said, let me take that shot. And that was the first glimpse of the GOAT. Now, we're talking about a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar who is, as Lou Alcindor, 7 feet 2 inches tall. Ralph Sampson, 7'4". So, again, they were so tall, it was unfair. You couldn't stop them at the college level because you're looking down at it's Gulliver and the Lilliputians. You're just looking down at a bunch of little guys, and you can just lay it in over them, and nobody could stop Kareem. And I've told you before, in his first 2 years, couldn't play as a freshman, sophomore, junior years, he had the two best guards in America in Lucius Allen and Mike Warren, both pro players. Mike Warren didn't go pro because he decided to become a big TV star, which he was, Hill Street Blues. And then by Kareem's third year, he had Sidney Wicks, who was going to be the second overall pick in the draft. And he also had Curtis Rowe, who was going to be the 11th overall pick in the draft. They were loaded with John Wooden talent, and he had, obviously, what most people consider the greatest coach ever. And, yeah, they won every finals by a landslide because it was not fair. Although, when it was a fair fight one night in the Astrodome on a Saturday night, a game I watched live, Elvin Hayes just took Kareem all apart. Kareem was 4 for 18. That was the first time they played. Kareem got revenge the next time around the next year. I will give you that.
Blew the doze off it.
Michael Jordan, here's the point. Michael Jordan, inch for inch, was the greatest college player ever because he was only 6'6", so he couldn't lay it in over everybody. He didn't have that kind of height advantage, and he had the biggest disadvantage any player in the history of college basketball has ever had, and that was Dean Smith. And you know, you mentioned it, the old cliche was only one man could stop Michael Jordan in college, and that was his coach, Dean Smith. It's a crime that he averaged 14, 20, and 20. Are you kidding me? He just couldn't shoot because the system wouldn't allow him to shoot the way he could the first year, his rookie year as a Chicago Bull. And then all of a sudden, voila, the GOAT happened. The GOAT could have happened in college basketball, and yet it was a basketball crime that the GOAT didn't happen when they lost to Georgia in the NCAAs in the Elite Eight, and then they lost to Indiana, Bobby Knight's team in the Sweet 16. That's impossible. Bobby Knight loved Michael Jordan. Bobby Knight was in awe of him and told the Trailblazers, you better take him. And the Trailblazers said, well, we need a center. And Bobby Knight's line was, well, play Jordan at center. That's how great he was. And Knight knew what was going to happen once he hit pro basketball.
Well, GOAT players shouldn't lose to a basketball team that's known for football. Georgia, Vern Fleming, Hugh Durham, the Georgia Bulldogs beat him that year in '83 because they ended up losing to NC State. But you keep mentioning who Kareem played with, and all Sidney Wicks and Michael Warren and all those guys. Michael Jordan played with number 1 overall pick, James Worthy, number 1 overall pick, Brad Daugherty, a top 5 pick in Sam the Bam Perkins, a first-round pick in Kenny Smith, a first-round pick in Jimmy Black. So, Skip Bayless, I want you to stop pretending like Michael Jordan did not play with great talent. Because if I'm not mistaken, isn't James Worthy the Hall of Fame? Top 50 player, won Finals MVP. Before LeBron did, he was the second guy to have a triple-double in a Game 7. Jerry West did it in the '69 Finals. James Worthy did it with a 36, 16, and 10 performance, followed up by GOAT James against the Warriors, 27, 11, and 11. So stop trying to fool the people and pretend that Michael Jordan played with bums at college, because he didn't. And you know he did. That's why you're over there key.
Shannon Sharpe, you know and I know.
What?
This is all about you trying to protect your man, LeBron James, the phony GOAT.
My guy was so good, college couldn't hold him. The college couldn't hold him. They say you too good. It's like Einstein. You can't go to college. You too smart. You're smarter than the teachers. Wow. So what good are you? We just wasted your time. They say go straight from high school to the NBA, because that's the only grown men. Kids can't play with him. You didn't know that, Skip Bayless? In kindergarten, he was playing with the 8th graders. That's what he did on the basketball court with 8th graders at a kindergartner. They in sandboxes, he on the blacktop with 8th graders. Saw it for myself.
Really? Now you saw it as well.
Yep.
What haven't you seen, Shannon, when it comes to your guy, LeBron? We got to shift gears.
No mercy.
According to reports, the Packers are one of several teams who are, quote, doing varying levels of homework on Utah State quarterback Jordan Love for the upcoming draft. Aaron Rodgers is under contract for 4 more seasons in Green Bay, but the Packers did draft Rodgers when they still had Brett Favre under center. So, Shannon, what does it tell you that the Packers are one of those teams doing their homework and trying to learn as much as they can about Jordan Love?
It tells me they're one of the teams seems like they're cramming for an exam. The hay should be in the barn. You should have done your homework, your scouts. You should have had all the tape. You watched him at the combine. You should have done all your due diligence now. But I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. If you do select this kid, 2 things are going to happen. Aaron Rodgers is going to be very upset because you're drafting a player that inevitably is going to replace him. And second of all, you drafted a player that can't help him win right now. Aaron Rodgers believes I can win right now if you give me the right pieces. So, Skip, why would you not? Because it's hard for me to believe that Jordan Love is going to be the best prospect coming out of college at the quarterback position over the next 4 years. Aaron Rodgers, you're equipped to win right now. You have Aaron Rodgers. You don't go get another quarterback. You go get pieces that's going to help you win right now. Maybe you go get another receiver or put him outside or tight end. Because you did lose Jimmy Graham, maybe you get a tight end. The last couple of years, Skip, you see what they've done. They've shored up their defense. Went in free agency. They've been heavily involved in free agency. Skip, you got to go get pieces that's going to help Aaron Rodgers win. You don't get a piece that's going to help you, 4 years, 5 years from now. Aaron Rodgers is going to be upset if you take this guy. And Aaron does not strike me as a guy, Skip, that's going to say, you know what? I'm going to take this kid under my arm, and I'm going to show him the ropes. I'm going to show you how to be a quarterback in the NFL. I'm going to show you how to be a pro. I don't see that happening. Maybe you do, But I don't see that happening. He's going to be ticked if they take a quarterback in the first round, because everybody knows when they take a player in the first round, regardless of position, they drafted that guy to play sooner rather than later.
So maybe you're missing the point. Maybe the Packers have decided that Aaron Rodgers isn't the piece they need to go forward and win a Super Bowl. Maybe they've decided it's time to find the Aaron Rodgers to Brett Favre. Maybe, what did this tell us, Shannon Sharpe? Because when I read this story, I believe it was Saturday on ESPN.com, Matt Wells is the new coach. He was last year at Texas Tech, but obviously the year before he was at Utah State. He recruited and then coached Jordan Love through his best season at Utah State, which was 2 seasons ago, before Matt Wells left to go to Texas Tech, where he was only 4-8 last year. But under Matt Wells with Jordan Love, and they lost, I believe, something like 10 starters on offense, but
they did, yeah.
That year before, Utah State went 11-2, and Jordan Love was 32 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions with 7 rush touchdowns. Well, I'll be the first to admit I didn't watch him that year, and I definitely didn't watch him last year when they went 7-6, and he threw 20 touchdowns to only 17 interceptions. So much higher interceptions, much lower touchdowns. So Matt Wells said to ESPN, 7 teams have called to ask me about Jordan Love. And I'm reading down the list and I'm thinking, Dolphins, okay, I get that. Saints, yeah, it seems like Drew Brees is probably in his final year. Patriots, they definitely are in need of a quarterback. How about the Chargers? They're really in need of a quarterback. And how about the Redskins? I never was a big Dwayne Haskins fan. They could be in need of a quarterback. And there was one other team on the list, the Packers. Well, that's the team that caught my eye because I've been trying to tell you, Aaron Rodgers' stats have slowly declined over the last 4 years, steadily gone south in QBR and completion percentage, south, each of the last 4 years, falling all the way in QBR last year to 18th and in completion percentage to 21st. Wow, that's not very good. And obviously, Aaron Rodgers went to 1 Super Bowl and only one. He did win it against Pittsburgh, but that was almost 10 years ago. And since then, he's been sub 500 in the playoffs. And since then, he's been spotty in his playoff performances. He's had some embarrassing losses. He's had some pretty lucky wins, such as the Dez Caught It game. And I can go on to the Mason Crossbar game. Took a 56 and 51-yard field goal that shouldn't have made it at all, but hand of God pushed both of them back inside the uprights at Jerry World to save Aaron Rodgers in those games. So maybe the Packers are thinking, gee, maybe we could steal an Aaron Rodgers later in the first round, because right now they're drafting 30th. I definitely don't think Jordan Love will last until 30th, though stranger things have happened, because Aaron Rodgers, a lot of people thought he was going to go first in that draft to his home area team, San Francisco. And Alex Smith went first, and all of a sudden, Aaron starts plunging down the first round, and he's sitting in the green room with longer and longer face thinking, well, what has happened to me? And he didn't go until 24, obviously, to the Packers. Great pick. But he had to sit behind Brett Favre for 3 years, and they rebuilt his delivery and they got him ready. So it was actually a great thing for Aaron Rodgers that he fell to 24. Maybe it could be a great thing for Jordan Love that he could now be in the Green Bay pipeline, but I think they're going to have to trade up some. They're going to have to go from 30 up to, 20-ish. Again, Todd McShay thinks he's going to go all the way up at 6 to the Chargers, Jordan Love, and he well might. I'm just not sure about him because I saw him in the All-Star game. I know I've seen his highlights, his YouTube highlights, but I haven't watched him consistently enough because I chose not to have a real read on him. But everybody says he might have the biggest ability overall, athletic plus big arm in this draft. So maybe that's the guy the Packers are going to try to steal in the first round to be the next Aaron Rodgers, because maybe they need a next Aaron Rodgers sooner than later.
Well, Skip, if you think about it, when they gave up 37 points and they gave up like 300 yards rushing in the championship game last year, was that Aaron Rodgers' fault? No, I don't think so. If you go back and look at the history, when they lost to the Giants, they were 15-1, and they gave up 37 points to Eli Manning. Was that Aaron Rodgers' fault? You look at when they gave up 44 to the Atlanta Falcons in the NFC Championship game. Was that Aaron Rodgers' fault? Or when they gave up 51 to the Arizona Cardinals, was that Aaron Rodgers' fault? You see, what we see here, what people see at home, is that when the Patriots used to lose, no matter what happened, it was Coach Belichick's fault. Now, they give up 50, they give up 45, they give up 37. That's Aaron Rodgers' fault. And what would make Rodgers even matter if you traded assets to move up and get this kid, as opposed to getting assets that's going to help me win right now. If people believe that there's nothing wrong with Tom Brady, but there's something wrong with Aaron Rodgers, those people need to be checked. Because Aaron Rodgers is just fine. He's shown, give him a little time, and he still can make all the throws as we saw last year. So if I'm the Packers, I'm going to get pieces that's going to help Aaron Rodgers win. Not a nice skip. It's kind of like right now. Now is not the time to be buying shiny toys in order to sit. Now is the time where we're living right now is to get things that's going to help us survive this. Having a nice little car in the garage or getting a new ornament somewhere that's, ooh, you see what I got? What good is that? So for me, that's how Aaron Rodgers is looking at it. Don't be giving me anything that's not going to help me right now. If it's not going to help me right now, it's doing us a disservice. And I'm going to be ticked off, and I'm going to let y'all know. Y'all know, hey, I start drinking that scotch, I'm liable to say anything. That's how A-Rod rolled. Mm-hmm. So if y'all don't want the man talking all twisted, y'all better go ahead and get him a receiver, or you probably should get an offensive lineman to replace Bulaga that went to the Chargers. That's what you probably should do.
So Aaron Rodgers is now talking about playing into his 40s. But if you look at some of his playoff wins post-Super Bowl, he got to play, help me out, was this not a break? He got to play Joe Webb as the starting quarterback of the Vikings. He got to play Kirk Cousins when he was pretty much a disaster for the Redskins. He got to be the quarterback in the Dez Claudette game. He got to be the quarterback in the Mason Crossbar game. And he got to be the quarterback when Odell took his receivers to South Beach to sun themselves on a yacht to get ready for a game up on the frozen tundra, a playoff game against Aaron Rodgers' team. Was that not a big break for Aaron Rodgers? Because Odell dropped 2 big passes in the first quarter of that game. I'm sorry, his resume is not impressive. And one game that he lost was the game that he stunk in at Seattle in the NFC Championship game. So I'm sorry, his resume post-Super Bowl over the last 10 years is not one that you want to bank on for him to play into his 40s.
Blake Bortles. That's who Tom Brady beat one year to get to the Super Bowl. Blake Bortles. And guess who he lost to in the Super Bowl? Nick Foles. Nick Foles was so bad that the Jacksonville Jags was willing to eat $35 million in dead money. Say, get him up out of here. We want Gardner Minshew. That's right. I'm going to say that slow for people at home. Gardner Minshew won the starting role over Nick Foles. Nick Foles took down Tom Brady, and he can't hold a job outside of Philly. Let that sink in. He couldn't cut it with the Rams. He couldn't cut it with Kansas City. He couldn't do it in Jacksonville. Now he's moving on. And he took down Tom Brady.
Let this sink in. Tom Brady threw for an all-time playoff record 505 and put up 33 points and lost to Nick Foles because that sorry Bill Belichick and his defense gave up 41 to the backup quarterback, Nick Foles. And the final point was, he beat Blake Bortles in the AFC Championship game after he was down 20-10 early in the fourth quarter and threw for 138 yards against the Saxonville defense with 12 stitches in the palm of his throwing hand. Thank you very much for bringing those up.
Didn't Coach Belichick say he didn't have open heart surgery?
I gotta interrupt you guys.
Isn't that what Coach Belichick said?
That is not what he said, Shannon. Come on. We're going to leave it at that because somehow we started with Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers and ended with Tom Brady and Foles. So switching gears. No mercy. According to multiple reports, there is now a rift between Jazz players Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell after Gobert was seamlessly a little careless, touching the microphone. We all saw the video before he realized he was infected with the coronavirus. But yesterday, Gobert said on Instagram Live that he and Donovan have spoken, and this report is really being blown up by the media. So, Shannon, your reaction to this?
Skip, for me, look, this water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit, 100 degrees Celsius. So if I put a pot of water on the stove, Skip, it's not going to boil. Something's going to have to transpire. For it to get to this, there had to be something underlying that brought this to the boil. Now, we don't know what it is, Skip, because at first Rudy Gobert shot it down. And as more and more people started reporting, he finally came out and says, yeah, we're not perfect, but the same goal is in place. We want to win. Skip, for friends to get like, Skip, you can't go from 0 to 100. How do you go from this to that soon? Look, I get it. The guy was not taking this COVID-19 serious. He was joking around, yada, yada, yada. Okay, he gets you infected. Okay, I get that. But if a friend of mine, if me and friend, let's just say my best friend, Keith Burns, Daryl Bucket McCormick, Skip, they got the thing, we joking around, I get it. Skip, I'm not falling out with that. I'm not falling out over that. Skip, we've been friends if we boys like that. Now, if there's underlying tension, okay, this is the straw that broke the camel's back. But Skip, there's something more to it in a situation like this. You're never going to get equal value, but you're going to have to move one of them. If this report is true, and I don't have any reason to believe that it isn't, Skip, you're going to have to move one of them. And you know what happens when you move a superstar? You never get value in return. And it's going to almost cripple Utah, Skip, because unlike Stockton and Malone that stayed there the lion's share of their career, guys are not coming to Utah. One of their best players, Hayward, he left. So you're not going to get the guys unless you hit on the draft. And they hit one with Donovan Mitchell. They hit that with Rudy Gobert. Skip, they're going to end up breaking this thing up.
I have no idea what you're talking about because Rudy Gobert was Defensive Player of the Year in 2018 and 2019. He's the most dominating defensive force in the league. And Donovan Mitchell broke through this past year that we're still in right now and made his first All-Star team. So they're not going to get rid of one or the other. Shannon, I've covered dozens of teams in which there were big fights between stars. How about the 95 Cowboys? I wrote a whole book about it, how they won in spite of themselves. So, again, I understand why Donovan was upset from the beginning because Rudy was so careless in his behavior. And that was before any of us really knew what was about to blindside us about just how contagious this virus is 3 times more than the flu. And Rudy obviously was risking the lives of his teammates, starting with Donovan. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like they've at least come to coexist again because Rudy said they did speak and they did hash out their differences. There were differences, and I don't blame Donovan for being furious over this to start with because I would have been. But they've made peace with it. Everybody's okay. Everybody has survived it as far as we know. And from this point forward, I think they'll coexist and go forward. And I still think they're a very good team. And they were just starting to play like I thought the Jazz would play when this hit, starting with Rudy Gobert.
That's what Rudy Gobert said. Skip, you remember when that trade almost happened in New England where they was going to move on from Tom Brady and keep Jimmy Garoppolo and Mr. Kraft and Bill Belichick, and Tom Brady released that statement and everything was okay, right? That's what the statement said. Everything is okay. We going to continue to build this thing and yada, yada, yada. We're going to sing Kumbaya, eat marshmallows in the fire, and we're going to be good. We know that wasn't the case. Skip, I believe this was maybe, as they say, Skip, the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back. But there was something that was building to this crescendo. Skip, you don't go from 0 to 100. You just don't put that pot on the stove and the water starts to boil. Something has to occur. Something led to this pot to start boiling. We're going to find out. I believe if this is what true, Skip, somebody's going to leave. Skip, you believe they're going to give a Rudy Gobert? Because he's in line for a super max contract. Super max. You're not paying that guy that can't shoot threes $250 million over 5 years. Watch what I tell you now. Remember, you heard it. They're going to move Rudy Gobert.
Well, I hope so. I hope my Spurs get him because he's only 27 years of age, and we need somebody who can defend the rim. So I'll take that, but I do not see that happening.
We'll just have to wait and see. All right, guys, we started the show talking about horse, and that's how we're going to end it. Can LeBron be the GOAT if he lost a game of horse to a non-NBA player? We discuss next.
No mercy.
Back in 2008, LeBron faced trick shot specialist David Cobb in a little game of horse at Venice Beach. But here's the thing, guys. LeBron would go on to lose that game of horse to Cobb. So, Shannon, how embarrassed should LeBron have been about losing?
He shouldn't be embarrassed at all, Skip. He's a trick shot artist, which has nothing to do with the game of basketball. Skip, there are great billiard players, but there are also players that all they do is trick shot on the billiard table. They shouldn't be mad. Skip, you know what? This is another opportunity for you to try to throw, Skip, you make me sick. I just want you to know you make me sick. LeBron James should not feel embarrassed losing to a guy that his specialty is trick shots, not playing basketball, kicking the ball into the net, throwing the ball behind his back, or doing whatever he did. Skip, stop this. LeBron James is the GOAT. I don't care what you do to try to diminish him. It's not going to happen. He's GOAT.
I did not make this up. This video is viral all over the internet. It's from 2008 on Venice Beach. You can watch it. I watched the whole thing. He got skunked by a little white guy half his size who never played pro basketball. He did clever shots, but he didn't do kick-in shots. He didn't do silly shots. He did basketball shots. And I've told you from the start, LeBron has never been comfortable doing standalone things on a basketball court, such as shoot free throws, especially late in games, dunk contests, never did them, and horse competitions, not comfortable in that. He had his chance. He could have done his shots, which I'm sure he tried to do, and he missed his shots, and he gave the little guy openings to do his bounce shots, but there were a lot of basketball shots where he caught it in the air and turned and shot jumpers, and LeBron couldn't pull that off because I think he was a little nervous.
I thought you said if you do horse, you wanted only basketball plays, only basketball shots. That's not a basketball shot.
Good stuff today, guys. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Be well. Stay safe, everyone.